hereafter. In any case, we have done these 3 chapters. Inshallah, today we do Bab al-Tarhib min Masawi al-Akhlaq, which means warning or scaring people from falling into bad manners. It's very important. And the scholars, they said that the reason Ibn Hajar rahimahullah started this chapter before going to the next one, which is Targhib fi Mahasin al-Akhlaq, and encouraging people to have good manners, because they said we have a concept in Islam called at-Takhalli qabla at-Tahalli. So these principles we should try to memorize, because they're very easy to memorize, but they are very important principles. At-Takhalli means to free oneself from something. So Takhalli, for example, in this case means to clean oneself from bad manners. Tahalli means to beautify oneself with something. So in this particular thing, it means to beautify ourselves with good manners. So for example, in relation to Aqidah, we can use the same principle. Aqidah means our faith and belief. We can say Takhalli, meaning we remove incorrect beliefs, and Tahalli, meaning we beautify ourselves with good beliefs. So this is a nice principle to know for us. Like for example, principle we have in a very short hadith called La Darara wa La Dirar, which means no harming and no returning harm to someone who has harmed you. It's a principle that is used very widely in Islam. And principles are taken from the Quran and Sunnah. So the scholars don't come and just invent principles. They study the Quran and the Sunnah very long time, and then they come with these principles that are very easy and condensed in a few words for us to benefit and memorize. The first hadith we have in this chapter is on the authority of Abu Huraira, whose name people differed on greatly, more than 20 or 30 sayings, but people like Ibn Hajar and as far as I remember, An-Nawawi and others, they said it's closer that his name is Abdurrahman bin Sakhr ad-Dawsi, and we of course know him as Abu Huraira. And I mentioned before many times that Abu in Arabic means father, and also it can mean someone who is known for something. Like I mentioned before, swordfish in Arabic is Abu Sayf. Abu Sayf, swordfish. And so Abu Huraira is a kitten, as you know probably, that you can translate it as kitten man. And there was a kitten they say he used to have or used to play with when he was a child, not when he was an adult, despite what some people say. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِيَّاكُمُ الْحَسَدِ, that's what Abu Huraira said, فَإِنَّ الْحَسَدِ يَأْكُلُ الْحَسَنَاتِ كَمَا تَأْكُلُ النَّارُ الْحَطَبَ. This hadith means or translates as, I warn you against hasad. Hasad means envy, because envy eats away good deeds like firewood eats, or like fire eats firewood. This hadith was collected by Imams Abu Dawud, and Ibn Majah has a similar narration as Ibn Hajar said himself. Here, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah didn't comment on the degree of this hadith. And if we analyze and look at what other scholars of hadith said, because for every science, we must remember, for every field of expertise, we have specialists. So for example, we have doctors who specialize in different fields. In the same way, we have, for example, engineers that specialize in different kinds of engineering. We have all sorts of expertise in different areas of knowledge. And of course, Islam, we have the same in relation to scholars. So some scholars specialize in Aqidah more than other fields. Some scholars specialize in fiqh. Some scholars specialize in al-usul or usul al-fiqh. Some scholars specialize in hadith, for example. That's why we go to the scholars when we have a hadith problem. We look at what the scholars of hadith said. So here we find that a number of scholars, great big scholars of hadith, have graded this hadith not authentic. For a number of reasons we don't want to go into. I will name 3 names: Imam al-Bukhari, Imam Suyuti, and Shaykh al-Albani rahimahumullah. They all said that this hadith is weak. When a hadith is found to be weak, it means that the Prophet ﷺ didn't say it. So we cannot say that the Prophet ﷺ said. A question naturally arises: why did Ibn Hajar rahimahullah or any other author include weak ahadith in their books? And this was mentioned before, but I will repeat it again, that the scholars who are scholars of hadith, and Ibn Hajar no doubt was one such scholar, they know very well that this hadith is weak. But they include this hadith in the hope, one of the reasons they do so is because they hope, because they don't believe that they have exhausted their research in terms of, because each hadith has different chains of narration. So they believe that someone after them may find something that may strengthen this hadith. Or maybe they include this because the meaning is correct, and it's true, because we will learn now that when a person has hasad, and what hasad is, then that destroys his religion. That destroys his good deeds, his hasanat. Just like fire eats wood, meaning very quickly and very in a very, very quick and very meaning in that fast way. So the meaning, when we say the meaning is correct, it means that this meaning we have from other sources in the Quran and Sunnah. And we will look now what the scholars said about hasad. And of course all of you know Surah al-Falaq. And at the end of it, and we will look at what the scholars said about that, we say وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, which means, and from the evil of the hasid, the envier, not all the time, but when he envies. Because maybe the envier, and we will see what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, maybe the envier doesn't cause harm except when he envies, and that is true. So today we will talk about this. And the Shaykh, the author rahimahullah, he started by hasad. Why? Because hasad is very tremendous sin and very bad character. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "La tahasadu." Don't envy one another. In Arabic, the full version would be "La tatahasadu," but in Arabic, it is possible to remove the first ta to make it easy to pronounce. That's for those of you who learn Arabic. So al-hasad, the scholar said, الذي نهي عنه هو أن يرى الإنسان نعمة الله عند آخر. When we see some ni'mah, goodness, that Allah has given someone, فيتمنى زوالها منه. So that person who envies, who has hasad, he wishes that ni'mah to be removed from that person. And in some cases the scholars said that this hasid, this envier, does not want that ni'mah to come to him, but he wants that person to lose it. And that is the worst type of hasad, they said, because it is just pure evil from the fact, or based on the fact that the person doesn't want that individual to have that ni'mah. Of course, it's been mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah that it is one of the biggest sins. Allah said in Surah An-Nisa, أَمْ يَحْسُدُونَ النَّاسَ عَلَى مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Or do they envy people over what Allah has given them from His goodness and from His graciousness? And this, the ulama said, inkar. It is a rebuke from Allah to those people who envy others, and this is a trait of non-Muslims, especially the Jews. Allah described them like that. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said, دَبَّ إِلَيْكُمْ دَاءُ الْأُمَمْ قَبْلَكُمْ, that you have been afflicted with the illness of the umam, nations before you, al-hasad, wal-baghdha hiya al-haliqa, and hating one another based on that is haliqa. Haliqa means something that shaves. You can say a shaver. Haliqa to deen, the Prophet said, and it's in many hadith to reconcile between the Muslims, because it removes their religion, it shaves off their religion. And some ulama said that the first sin that people committed and disobeyed, or rather the first sin through which Allah was disobeyed, is hasad, envy. Some people call it jealousy. It's not correct. In English, jealousy means something different. Envy is a better word for it. The first sin, why? Because when Allah ordered Iblis to do sujood to Adam alayhi salam, Iblis envied him. Because as you know from the Quran, Allah taught Adam alayhi salatu wasalam the names of everything. And therefore Iblis envied him and refused to do sujood to him. So Allah removed him and removed him from Jannah. One of the great scholars who is a student of Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, said that hasad in itself is a natural thing that occurs in human nature. And that is because every person dislikes when someone who is from his, you can say, circle is better than him or overcomes him in something that is good. So people generally compete with each other in those things. So if they see he means someone who has done better than himself, he doesn't like it naturally. He said, therefore people are of different degrees in relation to hasad. From them, he said, that those who try to remove that ni'mah, that goodness that someone has, by speech or action. So by speech or action, meaning, for example, someone envies someone for something, and they start talking bad of them, or saying, for example, he got it in a wrong way, or he doesn't use it in a good way. For example, someone has knowledge of Islam, or someone has a good car, or someone has a good house, or someone has a good family. All of these are ni'mah from Allah. So that is one category of people. Another category of people, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah said, those who try to remove it from that person and transfer it to themselves. And third category, those who want just to remove that ni'mah, that goodness from that person without wanting to have it. And this is the worst, this third one which we described, and all of these three are haram. It's not permissible, and unfortunately many Muslims fall into that. And we must try and fight ourselves, and we will see what the scholars said. And another group of people, Ibn Rajab said, rahimahullah, when he feels he has hasad, envy, he does not obey his hasad, because generally when you have hasad and all of us, we feel sometimes that hasad orders us to do some things which are haram, not permissible. First of all, to hate and to do all of these are actions of the heart. So we have to be careful, we have to be attentive, because when that comes, if we're not prepared, we will follow the shaitan in that. So Ibn Rajab rahimahullah says, he, that individual, doesn't follow his hasad, what he's telling him, and he doesn't transgress limits, he doesn't wrong that individual by speech or action. And some said that, Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah said that by that he doesn't get a sin. If he doesn't allow that hasad to develop, he stops it. Another group of people, when he finds himself feeling hasad towards others, he tries to remove it. And he tries to do good to that person. And make dua and say good things about him and praise him in front of other people. Until he, instead of disliking that, he starts liking that person. So this in itself is jihad. Jihad of nafs, as you know. Jihad of yourself, because the self, our nafs, can be one that tells us to do good and one that tells us to do bad. And generally the one that tells us to do bad, it comes from the shaitan, from the qareen. Each one of us has a jinn that tells us to do bad, so we have to fight that. And Ibn Rajab rahimahullah said, and this is one of the highest degrees of iman, and the person who does it is a perfect mu'min, perfect believer, who loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And when we say brother, as you know, we mean sister as well, meaning sisters between themselves also the same. They can't envy each other. Because the Prophet said, as you know, that none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. In some narrations of this hadith, min al-khair, from good. Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Sa'di rahimahullah said that hasad is of two types. Some say three, some say two. It's not a big problem because some grouped two in one and so on. So Shaykh al-Sa'di rahimahullah said, one type is haram, and that is the person he wishes that ni'mah to be removed from that person, whether he likes it to have it or not. See, he grouped it into one. And he does not fight himself to remove that feeling. And the second type is that the person does not wish that other person to lose that ni'mah, but he wishes to be like him. And this, he said, is from wishing to be good. And if it's coupled with the person trying to be good and doing everything he can to do it, then he said it's nur ala nur, light upon light. As for what some people wish for in terms of being, for example, he said wealthy, or from the world's worldly things, just to enjoy the dunya, then this is not praiseworthy. Like he said, the story of Qarun and his people, or people who followed him. Because Allah described to us the story of Qarun, who used to have tremendous wealth, and Allah destroyed him. And then the people who didn't know, they said, we wish that we had wealth like Qarun. Meaning that to enjoy it only in the world without using it for what Allah loves. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, explaining the saying of Allah, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ,